I turned 50 on a Saturday in March, a milestone I had tried to approach with optimism. I booked a quiet little event space downtown, arranged the catering, ordered a cake big enough for 40 people, and even sent out the invitations weeks in advance. My law firm colleagues knew. My friends from the neighborhood knew. My family knew. Most importantly, my wife knew. I arrived early that day, straightening the tablecloths, rehearsing in my head the little toast I had planned. It wasn't anything grand, just gratitude for the people who had walked beside me for half a century. I checked my watch every few minutes, telling myself that people were just running late. The staff gave me sympathetic glances as they passed by with trays of hors d'oeuvres no one touched. 1 hour turned into 2. Not a single guest walked through the door. My phone stayed silent, except for a spam call. I let go to voicemail. I tried to laugh it off, sipping the champagne that was supposed to be shared, telling myself this was some mix-up, maybe even a surprise they had organized for me. But the truth hung in the air like a bad smell. No one was coming, and my wife of 15 years, was nowhere. At first, I told myself she must have been delayed, maybe caught in traffic, maybe deal with something urgent. But the later it got, the harder that lie became to believe. The candles on my untouched cake flickered down to wax stubs. By the end of the night, I sat alone in a hall filled with food, laughter tracks playing only in my imagination, and a crushing silence that felt heavier than anything I'd carried in court. I went home to an empty house. No note, no explanation. Just the echo of my own footsteps. 2 weeks later, I got a message from my wife. No acknowledgement of my birthday. No apology for leaving me sitting in humiliation at my own celebration. Instead, it was a blunt demand. Venmo me $1,500 for my dad's birthday party. I already booked everything. That was it. No conversation. No softening words. No recognition of what had happened just days earlier. It was like being stabbed after already bleeding out. I stared at the message for a long time, my hands trembling with the weight of what it meant. This wasn't absent-mindedness or a mistake. This was deliberate disregard. I thought back to the years I had given her, supporting her through her career changes, standing beside her during her father's hospital stays, carrying the weight of bills when she couldn't. And now, after my humiliation, she expected me to bankroll her father's celebration as though nothing had happened. So I sent her $2, a gesture small enough to make a point, sharp enough to cut through the fog. Then I called my lawyer, not just any lawyer, a partner from my own firm, someone I trusted. I explained everything, my voice steady but my chest tight. The betrayal wasn't just about one night or one message. It was years of erosion, years of giving and receiving less and less in return, until all that was left was a hollowed-out shell of a marriage. I felt grief. Of course. But beneath it was something else. Clarity. I remembered every night I stayed late at the office while she scrolled through social media. Every time I had asked her if she was happy, and she brushed me off with, "I'm fine," though her eyes had been distant. I thought about the growing gulf between us, the unspoken resentments, the way she no longer reached for my hand when we crossed the street. The signs had been there all along, but I had ignored them, too focused on being a provider, the steady one, the rock. Now, at 50, I realized I'd been a rock in a river where she no longer wanted to stand. When I finally sat down across from her to talk, she barely looked at me. She seemed more annoyed than remorseful, more inconvenienced than heartbroken. "I just didn't feel like going," she said when I asked why she skipped my birthday. "You always make everything about yourself." The words hit harder than any courtroom defeat I'd ever faced. Everything about myself? It was my birthday. My 50th birthday. If that wasn't the moment to celebrate myself, when was? But that was the truth I couldn't ignore. She had stopped seeing me as someone worth celebrating long before that night. So I let the lawyer handle the paperwork. I stopped fighting for explanations that would never come. I cut ties not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. The man who had once believed in loyalty above all else had to accept the bitter lesson that loyalty means nothing when it isn't mutual. I sent her father a polite note, explaining that I wouldn't be attending his party. No drama, no accusations, just quiet withdrawal. It wasn't his fault, But I couldn't continue playing the role of dutiful son-in-law while my own life crumbled. As the divorce proceedings began, I noticed a shift inside myself. There was grief, yes, but also an odd sense of rebirth. I started going to the gym again, not to escape, but to reclaim. I met with old friends I hadn't spoken to in years. Friends who apologized for missing my birthday and admitted they hadn't even known. My wife, it turned out, hadn't passed along the invitations I'd asked her to help distribute. The betrayal had been deeper than I realized. That discovery should have broken me further, but instead, it sharpened my resolve. I was no longer a man abandoned at his own birthday party. I was a man free to redefine what 50 meant. It wasn't a death sentence, wasn't a signal that life had passed me by. It was a line in the sand, a chance to start again with the lessons carved into my skin like scars. Betrayal cuts deep, but it also cauterizes. It forces you to see with painful clarity who stands with you and who stands only when it's convenient. My wife had chosen her absence, and I had chosen my exit. The night my divorce was finalized, I sat alone again, this time by choice. I poured myself a glass of wine, lit a single candle, and cut into a small cake I bought just for myself. There was no crowd, no noise, no fanfare, but there was peace. And peace, I realized, was worth more than any party. Because betrayal doesn't just end a relationship, it reveals the truth of it. And once you see that truth, there's no going back. I had lost my wife. I had lost illusions I had clung to for too long. But in that loss, I found something harder, purer, and infinitely more valuable, myself.